Commissioners of the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District is now called to order. It is Tuesday, February 12th. The time is 5:15 p.m. Joanne, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Ernst?
Here.
Commissioner Engel?
Here.
Commissioner Rollins?
Here.
Commissioner Vogelsang?
Here.
Commissioner Rice?
Here. Okay, Commissioners, any changes to the agenda? Okay.
Madam Chairman, I was wondering if we should defer the two contracts for Mr. Koski and for Ms. Harms, just because on Ms. Harms' contract, it's missing Exhibit B, or Exhibit A, I'm sorry. And Mr. Koski's saying, I think we need to flush out, what's going on with everything that the golf course as well as define exactly what we're going to do. So that's not detailed in the contract. We could talk about it if you prefer, I guess at the time of the meeting. I'm just saying maybe it would be better for another meeting, a later meeting, and focus on the golf course today.
Commissioners?
My preference would be to talk about it today, if we can get through it, enough, because we've already had cut the contracts that Jacob and Sam have taken a look at. And I guess this is a revision based upon our last meeting, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I would rather do it tonight, only because I'm sure next week's meeting is also going to be kind of heavy on the schedule side, and I want you to be able to keep your word about the March 4th meeting that I'm going to miss, being 15 minutes a night.
Okay, and Aaron?
That's fine.
Okay. Okay, so we will continue. And as we come to public requests, anybody who would like to comment about the golf course presentation, we're going to ask you to hold your comments until after Mr. Koski has given the presentation so that he may answer some of your questions, and it might make it a little easier for you to see where we're going with the golf course right now. So anybody who has a public request that does not have anything to do with the golf course, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and we would love to hear from you. Looks like everybody's here for the golf course. Okay, public request is now closed. We come to the approval of the meeting, the minutes for the regular meeting held on January 22nd, 2019 at 5:15 p.m.
So,
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. Passes, Joanne. Okay, we come to our first item on the agenda, the golf course report by Mr. Arthur Koski. Mr. Koski, thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Hopefully we are approaching the time when we can actually see some work beginning at our facility. Before I begin the more detailed presentation, let me just give you a little bit of immediate timetable. I believe that our council will be given direction by the chair and by the executive director to begin preparation of a request for qualifications for golf course contractors. What we're going to try to do is pre-qualify as many golf course contractors as possible, and upon completion of the construction drawings, then bid that project, which we're required to do, to the pre-qualified entities, as well as any other entity that may appear and prove to us that they are qualified to so bid, and evaluate then the bids that we receive, with the hope that we could possibly see turning the first shovel sometime during the latter part of the month of April or the 1st of May. For purposes of completion of the golf course aspect when anyone can go out and utilize the driving range, putting surface, practice putting, the full 18 holes and the par 3. We're still looking at a completion date of September 2020. Now, I have to admit that I've learned an awful lot from our esteemed golf course architect here, and what we're trying to do is build a quality facility which has sustainability, while at the same time keeping in mind that this is not a private golf club. The sustainability issue includes the installation of certain types of grass in the fairways. I think it is referred to, Wayne, as paspal. It's being used currently over at Broken Sound, I think, or being installed, or has been installed. And I've learned that that is only harvested at one particular location in the northern part of Georgia and at a certain time of the year. So we've got to meet these previously undefined milestones for installation of fairways and so forth, as well as providing for an appropriate grow-in time. And taking all of these factors into consideration, we feel confident we can have somebody who wins a lucky draw be the person to hit the first ball off the first tee in September of 2020. And I'm very excited, and I want to thank the Price Fazio team, the design team. Wayne and I have become too familiar. We meet almost every day, and they are great, I have to tell you. We had 19 firms that interviewed. We could have spent 19 years evaluating them all and not come up with a better team. Wayne, Nick, and ladies, unfortunately, Tommy is not here tonight. We men don't mind that at all, do we? But the purpose of me coming up to you this evening is twofold. Is to give you certain information and also have that information ratified by the board so that I can deliver that information to the city council, who is anxiously awaiting to hear from us on the issue of when the golf course will be ready so they can consummate their transaction with their sale of the municipal golf course, and further to give them a look at what we're planning to do and what the costs are and how the two entities will participate in the financing of the construction of this facility. I've been very fortunate to be involved with this district over the past 40-some years, 41 I think it is now. And for example, the building that we're sitting in here is a building and the entire park done through the funds of the district in phases. And I think as we approach and embark upon this golf course, we may be utilizing at least 2, possibly 3 phases to complete the full construction of the facility. The first phase, obviously, is to get the golf course open for play as quickly as possible. And that will require the construction of the golf course in all facets, so it's fully playable, that the driving range is operable, fully complete and usable. And the part 3 that is going to be on the northern end of the driving range will also be complete. That will be phase 1. In addition to phase 1, after much deliberation with our traffic engineers, consulting engineers, it has been decided that we will construct a tunnel beneath 2nd Avenue, probably approximately 200 yards south of the Clintmore Road intersection. We will be constructing a clubhouse on the southeast corner of Clintmore and Jeffrey Street, of 2nd Avenue and Jeffrey. And we will store our golf carts in the basement of the clubhouse, the bottom floor of the clubhouse. And we were very concerned about the safety of golf carts going to the first tee, which is on the west side of 2nd Avenue. And I think the last thing that anybody wants is any issues of accidents that would occur between vehicles using 2nd Avenue and golf carts coming from the storage area to begin their play of golf. And so therefore we've determined that the most feasible way of accomplishing the safety for all involved is to construct this tunnel. And it is a doable engineering exercise. It will cost us some money to do it, more than we originally had in the first budgets. But I just couldn't imagine opening this golf course and after a certain period of time having a horrendous accident between an automobile and a golf cart. I just can't see that in any way, and we have to do everything we can to prevent situations like that from occurring and to provide as much safety as possible for the people who are going to enjoy our golf course. So, having said that, where do we stand today? The design of this facility starts with the golf course architect, Price Fazio Group, along with Tommy Fazio, Wayne Branway, Nick Price. It extends to engineers, local Schnars Engineering, Sullivan in West Palm Beach for the tunnel, landscape architects, Grant Thornborough, traffic engineers, environmental people, irrigation specialists, and everybody and anybody that you can think of who would be necessary to improve this type of facility. And what we did, but the first thing you do in projects of this type is to try to find what's out there. And we've identified everything that's out there. We know where all of the irrigation was. We know where all of the water lines, sewer lines, drainage outfalls are. And then we have to evaluate the usefulness of what's there. And quite frankly, not very much of it is reusable. So this golf course, not only from above ground but below ground, will be basically new. New pump stations, new irrigation lines, new sewer connections, new water connections, pavement, all the way through. It's going to be a brand new facility when it is completed. With regard to the design of the project, I would say collectively we are at a 95% stage of completion of all design drawings. Some are at 100%, some are at 90%. But over the course of the next possibly 2 to 3 weeks, we should be at 100% for all of the design drawings. At that particular point, we'll be in a position to let contractors start taking a look at it, beginning our bidding process, going to the city of Boca Raton, showing them what we have planned, discussing the plans with them, seeking permits for the appropriate regulatory agencies, DEP, Lake Worth Drainage District, Army Corps of Engineers, and of course the city of Boca Raton. Now, I wish I could tell you how long permitting from the city of Boca Raton will take. I have been in discussions with Deputy City Manager George Brown, and he has promised to expedite this as much as possible. And I think that we will receive 100% cooperation from the city in the permitting process. One of the more awkward circumstances of permitting in the city is that it's up to the general contractor to bring in the permits, to obtain the permits. So it can't be the owner, even though we can run it through staff and have public review comments and review with staff. The final review comes when the contractor walks into City Hall with the plans under his arms and says, here, I'm applying for a permit to build this golf course. I think that we can manage that process so that it still fits within our timetable of opening in September of 2020. Now, one of the reasons we've been a little, or I have, I'll take the blame, remiss in not getting this to the city earlier, is because I wanted to make absolutely certain that the final product that we are designing is acceptable to these 5 elected officials here from the Beach and Park District. I don't want to write a letter to the city and say, here's what we have, and then have something change. Granted, it's only on paper, and changes can be made on paper, but once we start pouring concrete, we're pretty well committed. We're still waiting for some drainage calculations, but in the next couple of weeks, we'll have pretty close to 100% done for all of our plans. So what are those plans of? Well, I don't see like a bat. I mean, so let me tell you what it is instead of trying to point it out to you. The plan is to construct an 18-hole golf facility lying west of 2nd Avenue, 18 holes. On the east side of 2nd Avenue to have a driving range where the tee-box area is on the south portion of the property, driving north to have a par 3 golf course on the north end of the east parcel, and having a putting range, practice putting green immediately to the east of the clubhouse, which will be where the old hotel was. That's gone. We've gone round and round with the placement of the clubhouse. We think at that southeast corner of Jeffrey and 2nd is the best location for it, for the clubhouse. And I want to make absolutely certain, Madam Chair, that this auction, which has somehow gotten option 4 tagged to it, which is option 1, which was, I believe, originally approved by the board. If with an addition of moving the clubhouse from the northwest corner to the southeast corner, thus creating an option 4. So option 4 is 18 holes west of 2nd Avenue, driving range, putting area, par 3 golf course, and I think the maintenance building on the east side of 2nd Avenue, and with golf cart storage beneath the clubhouse. And Madam Chair, I would like at this particular point, so that when I write my note to the city tomorrow and tell them what we are presenting, that it will be a replica of what is here on the board and will be what I indicated to you as far as the layout of the facilities. I think we've discussed it before. There seems to have been a consensus before based upon prior minutes. I'm not quite sure if there's been a formal motion on it, but I would appreciate the board
Do that now.
considering a motion for option 4.
Commissioners?
Madam Chair, I make the motion that we go forward with approve option 4, which was the original option 1, as amended by moving the clubhouse from the northwest to the southeast corner.
Second motion.
Discussion?
I have one question. Where's the maintenance building?
We have discussed locations of the maintenance building from its original concept on the east side next to the railroad tracks to possibly being on the west side next to the Glenmore Road overpass, a little bit west of where the tunnel is. And I think we have now determined that the topography on the west side is a little bit difficult to have the maintenance building at that location. So currently it is going to be sited at an area that is due east from the terminus of Jeffrey Street, right along the railroad tracks. And I can assure you and all the residents in Mocatika who may think that will be some form of negative visual impact, it will not be. We will landscape that to the point that you won't even know what is there. So, Commissioner Wright, it will be currently planned to be where it was originally, and that is along the railroad tracks on the east side of the property.
Correct?
But, I'm not quite clear on what we're approving here and why we're approving it without talking to the designer first. Because to be honest with you, this is new, but we haven't had a full discussion around it. And I think we need to talk about and hear more why we got to where we got to. My understanding when we first talked about it, the short course is 9 holes. This is 11 holes. The putting green is as big as the parking lot. I think there's new features in here that rather than just saying it's okay, I'm sure there's some thought logic of how it got there and where it is, but for me, I think some of the important things are still missing in this design, including the maintenance center, wherever it's going to be, as well as the bathrooms that need to be in there. And I'd like to hear a little bit more of understanding how we got here, what it's going to, this is all nice, but what's it going to get us in the end, and it comes up to a price tag.
Well, you can't put the cart before the horse. In coming up with a price on anything, you have to do your design and your layout. Now, we have gotten to this point, and Wayne is here to assist, but we presented on numerous occasions options 1, 2, and 3 for the golf course itself. And the question is, are we in agreement that we're looking at an 18-hole golf course on the west side of the property?
I think we agreed back in January, we had 18 holes, a short course, and a driving range, so there's nothing changed from that
Good.
standpoint.
Okay, that's fine.
Doesn't mean we're approving that layout.
Well, what does it mean?
You got 18 holes, a short course, and this is not 18, this is 18 holes plus 11 holes plus a different type of driving range that was presented there. I'd like to hear how we got to it.
Well, we got to it through a variety of factors, and I'm glad to hear that at least we're in agreement with the 18 holes and the driving range where it is. And Wayne is here, can talk to you about the practice putting area and the short course.
Yep.
We have not in any way we are not in any way coming here tonight with something that you haven't seen before, okay? We have talked about the putting surface, and maybe there has been a misconception of what the practice putting area is going to be. It is a standalone feature, as most are in any golf course. There's no mountain in the middle of it. There's no windmill. Greg wanted an alligator that you put through the mouth, but we're not doing that. But it's something that is commensurate with the type of golf course that we have. The size of the practice putting area, as well as the size of the driving range, is in some way predicated upon what we anticipate to be the number of rounds of this golf course. We want this golf course to have as many rounds as possible to make it as economically feasible and successful as possible. The more rounds, the more revenue. And everybody and anybody that plays golf, before they go to the first tee, wants two things, aside from the bathroom break. They want to go practice putting on a putting green, and they want one of size where there's not 100 people out there at the same time so that they can't practice. And they want a driving range that is suitable for them with the size and length that they need in preparation of their round of golf. And I think that's how we've got here. But Wayne, if you want to talk a little further about the putting surface, please come up.
Good evening, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. Commissioner Ernst, I think we talked about the putting course. Let's start with the putting course. When it was actually prior to moving the clubhouse across there, and we talked about the east side becoming a center of activity. At that time, we were going to have a second, smaller clubhouse there. We would have the putting course, so that as part of what you're trying to do here, what we think you're trying to do here with this project is reach out beyond just with respect, just the golf association, is to reach out to people who don't have access to a golf course, who've never played golf before, or people that live in the area that have grandkids. So you have a facility to where they can go and they can actually start playing without any kind of a barrier. They don't have to get a golf cart. They don't have to buy golf clubs. They don't need shoes. They just show up and they start. And that's the biggest barrier to the game of golf that there is now. So in creating that east side activity zone, that putting course is very much a part of what I think this project is about. Because otherwise you just build a small green there, and you no longer reach out to those people, and you know, I think you limit yourself tremendously as a project. And then I think the range is no different to what we originally.
Seems narrower with a lot more sand traps in it.
No, those are not sand traps.
Okay.
I don't believe there are any sand traps on that range, but those, you know, again, a lot of that is conceptual. It's just showing the mowing lines around the greens, that what we're showing here. Towards just to the east, west of that driving range, we have a space because we know that the residents of Bocachica were somewhat perturbed about having the range there. And so in the original design, we pushed the range as far east as we could. We created a big landscaped area between there so that that would avoid any conflict or any issues at all. And so they would basically still look out onto a golf course.
Is the new range bigger than Osprey as was presented in January?
It is the same size as was presented in January. It is bigger than Osprey,
Yep, okay.
but it's the same size that we presented, the size of the tees, etc. The short course, basically, I know we have had not a lot, but we've had discussion about it originally. It was really a short course with some par fours in it. And we realized the more we looked at it, the more you had par fours and people out there with a driver, perhaps the more dangerous it would become, particularly as, again, we're trying to attract kids, people in the late afternoons there. So, and also that course is really, that ground there is really suited to a short course, to a dynamic short par 3 course. And why did we go 9 to 11? 9 is very traditional, but there's no reason why you can't have 11. And I think that the whole concept about that whole east zone is come over and just enjoy it. You can play 3 holes. You could play 5, you could play 11. There's no real, you have to grass that area. We're not going to turn that, so let's utilize it as much as possible, because we foresee a huge amount of use on that golf course. We really do, on that par 3 course.
Okay. Well, look, when we made the decision to change the clubhouse location, previously it was the hotel there, the hotel was across the street. My concern about the putting range is oriented towards how much leftover space are you going to have. When we originally purchased the golf course for $24 million, we came into it with the understanding that the hotel possibly could be raised and a new hotel would be in place, but regardless, there was an opportunity to sell that part of the property and to reduce our overall costs. So
Correct.
we don't have that option now, but I think we collectively all agreed that the clubhouse needed to move. So we're losing more of that revenue generating space.
But you're gaining it back on the other side.
Correct.
I haven't shown that because it doesn't make for a pretty picture, to be honest with you.
But is it viable space on the other side?
It is, where the old clubhouse was, that is all available for whatever you deem fit. And likewise, at the back of the 18th green, where the tennis courts were, that is all available.
Good. I think that's viable.
Right.
So as part of the selection process, as I recall when we were going through this, we challenge you with the approach of developing something that is affordable, something that's economical, and something that is creative.
Correct.
I give you kudos for the creativity on the short course and the concept around it for this. Whether it's 9 or 11, I hope that we're not the first one having an 11-hole course, so I assume not, otherwise you wouldn't be giving us that. The second part of it, though, is that creativity part of it. Other designers presented a lot of different things, from ice cream shop to many, many different things, because we have accepted the fact that golf has been on a dying trend, and we're trying to be stimulating to the entire community. And so part of that concept was possibly partnering with a restaurant or a hotel or someone. The more you build out on that east side and design it as a traditional golf course, that is what you will get, and that will be, it limits ourselves on our ability to partner with a restaurant or anyone else.
Not necessarily, because we're not building a runway here. The runways that have like a half, and Arthur will tell you, they have like a ½ inch tolerance from one end to the other. So we're moving, we're playing in the sand here, to be quite honest with you. We've got a very, very good guideline. We've got drawings that indicate how much earth we're going to move, where it's going to be moved to, so that we can establish a very, very close fixed cost for the contract, or however you determine you want to do it. But we have determined those costs, or we've determined the quantities. The costs are still to be determined. So now that we have this, I think, as Mr. Koski said, we're phasing it. So we've got the golf course in place. I think we do understand where the clubhouse needs to be. We understand where the tunnel needs to be. At some point, you know, as we start working on the second phase, which is the facilities itself, jump and tell me if I'm wrong, but if suddenly you decided, you know, we're not going to have the clubhouse on that side, we're going to move it back onto the other side where it was. It's a better idea. Move it back. We can move it back there, no problem. And if, you know, so somebody comes in and says, I'll pay you X for that, but we need the putting green, we'll take the putting green away. We'll move it. We'll make adjustments. Because all we're doing is we're playing with sand at the end of the day. The reality of it is. Now, once we get pipes in the ground or concrete, then it becomes costly to do that. But for the near future, as you begin to contemplate the second phase of the project, the facilities, what they're going to be, that kind of thing, we still have the opportunity to be flexible within our reason, obviously.
So what you're seeking is today, and only today, is the approval of just this layout and not the cost to build it?
Every new project has a cost, period. 1 and 1 is always 2. With the consent of the district in a formal nature, that the layout of what you see is what we want to start with. Then with that canvas, we now can identify those costs, which we have done. We've taken the presumption, based upon minutes of past meetings, that what you're seeing up here is generally what the district is looking for and what we want to present to the city. Now, one of the things we're going to have to present to not only you and the city is the cost. The original cost that we quoted for the golf course of $10,500,000 is still a pretty fair number. That constructs the 18 holes, the driving range, the practice putting area, and the par 3 course. The tunnel adds a little over another $2 million. But quite honestly, to avoid any catastrophic event, as somebody who's lived in the city for over 50 years, I don't necessarily, as a taxpayer, care whether that would be $5 million that saved a life. That is money well spent. You can say, no, I don't want to spend $2.5 million for the tunnel. Let's just let the golf carts cross on the surface across the road at a red light. I think that's the wrong approach. So you can add to that $10.5 million another $2.4 million. Now, in addition to what I said earlier, we have located everything, and not everything is workable. So we're going to have to put in a new irrigation system. We're going to have to put in irrigation pump stations. We're going to have to do a great deal of landscaping to make this project look good, not only for the community as a whole, but for the residents of the area. I want this to be something that you can be proud of. And what we will do going to the city, since they are going to be our financing partner in this, I suggest to you that for the first phase of this golf course, in order, including the maintenance facility, which we should have for preservation of equipment that we're going to keep, halfway houses, on-course restrooms, which are absolutely essential, and for some contingency factors that we're probably going to go over to the city and tell them we're going to need about $20 million to put this phase one in operation totally without any additional expense, and the only expense remaining to be that of the clubhouse. And I hope that we can go to the city, tell the city what we're looking at, and I have vetted this numbers, Wayne has, and we're constantly value engineering these numbers to see if there is any way that we can save a little bit here or there without significantly or materially impacting the quality of the product that we're trying to deliver to the public. So you're looking probably, Commissioner, at around a $20 million number exclusive of the clubhouse. Now, I don't want to get into the clubhouse just yet. That's going to be a surprise. Let's leave that till the next meeting if we can. We're still doing some investigation on the clubhouse.
So let's go back here, just on the layout. Say we agree with this nice picture of the layout. Wouldn't it be appropriate to know what the par of the course is, what the slope of the greens are, to know what we're actually buying, to kind of say, this is, you know, where's the details of all this stuff? I
They
mean,
provided all
I
that.
gave you all the
It's all back
plans.
there.
the only thing I saw was a color picture a few pages.
No, they were on the board, in the border.
I came here on last Thursday. I'll be happy to look at them again. I don't know if
Look
that's.
at those and show them.
Are you,
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw those today. In the conference room. They're great.
I have one comment. I'm a little hesitant to approve the layout tonight, only because I know I sound like a broken record, but we don't have any operations person giving us input on this layout. Now,
No, they do.
but
We have not employed anybody, but please do not think that these architects are operating in a vacuum. They have talked to sustainability people, they have talked to operational people. We know how much equipment we need to the dollar. Everything has been considered in this.
Yeah, in the process, in this entire process, excuse me, Albert, but we had two of the largest club operations companies come and join us for the
I
meeting.
totally understand that, but I would be more comfortable having somebody who is our client and not working directly with you and actually speaking directly to us in regards to this, because like, I don't know if anybody else read this email from Paul Connell. He does the golf courses for the county. And he said, I've seen some of the proposed layouts for the new facility and was wondering if you had gotten some input from operations people. Location of the range, first tees, and practice areas, pro shop, restaurant are important for fluid and efficient operations and golf cart fleet management. If you're anticipating a high-volume public facility, which is what we are, correct? The needs are different than lower volume private or semi-private facility.
And they have,
And that's what we've done.
that's what they've done.
We had two independent companies join us, our entire team, and talk to us
But we haven't
about.
seen any of that,
It's,
like, documentation saying.
They all came up. That's what we presented to you.
So, you know, Wayne, I welcome you to show me where the par is and all this stuff, and what's the slope of the greens, all the details.
Yeah, we
It's
did
not there.
Yeah, we did not include the scorecard on. No,
So it's, okay.
it's just, these are the construction drawings.
It's a nice picture. It's got fill and tape, but it doesn't have the details of running a golf course.
No, we're not in the business of running a course.
Oh, so then
We
it is a
just-
good idea than what Aaron suggested.
Well, while you were out of the room, what I said was the fact that we had a meeting with our entire team, 2 meetings with our team. We had 2 management companies join the meeting.
Mhm.
And that's when we conceived of what was going to be where, with their input. We would never assume to know that ourselves.
And
Excuse me,
Good.
just a minute.
Understood that.
A good example of that is the storage of the golf carts underneath the clubhouse. That's an operational aspect.
I think it's a great goal, but I think it's very expensive.
No, it isn't.
So, but I don't even know. I don't have any details to say what.
It's more expensive to build an additional facility.
All good, but I can tell you the two financial things that I did have, and I don't know if you're going by the July letter that you sent. There's inconsistencies with what was sent recently, so I'm not quite sure what's, what we're paying for. And what I'm trying to suggest is if you want to go to the city and ask for their financing for all this stuff, we have to have every T crossed, every I dotted, and all the details of a full-blown golf course. If that's 80% of the drawings,
It's 95% of the drawings.
that's 95% of the drawings.
Yes, sir.
So,
And I don't have this, it's what is a par 72, what is it?
Whether it's a par 71 or par 72 is going to be indicative of where you put the tee markers. If you want tees up front, we can make it a par 70 for you if you want. We want to put women's tees up front, and seniors like you and I will play up there. It'll be a par 68. If you want to make it a par 72, we can stretch it out. We could probably get it out to over 7,000 yards if we need to.
I think to answer your question, if you want to go to the city with an absolute final number, then you've got to take us to an RFP. You've got to design your clubhouse. You've got to have it.
The clubhouse is off the table.
Well,
I mean, to be honest with you.
All right, so you've got to design
Yeah.
the remaining buildings,
Right.
and you've got to finish the design of your tunnel and cost it through a bid process, and then you'll have a number.
And keep in mind that anytime you build a project, the way we have to build it with public bidding, we have to rely upon our consultant to bring us a set of plans that reflects what your desire is. The bid itself may be $5 million less than what we think. It may be $5 million more, in which case we reject it and we try to find where we save the $5 million. That's the animal that we're dealing with.
That's fair. And I'm not familiar with the public financing aspect of it, but Art, maybe you can share on that. Do you have to have your money in the bank before you go to bid?
No,
Just want to be clear. So you can go through all the bid process, the RFP process, and ask people to give you all the information and still not have the financing.
and our bid documents are written that we have the ability to pull that at any time. If this came in at $50 million, when our estimate was 20, we
Okay.
would walk away. If it came in at 10, I did a project for the deepening of the Miami Harbor. There were 4 bids, 40 million, 80 million, and 120 million. Which one do you think Miami-Dade County took?
100 million
Yeah, they took the 40 million and they took it over a weekend.
over the weekend.
But that's what you
Okay.
encounter, is the variation of contractors, what their workload is, whether they have equipment on that is idle. It can be a huge differential in the price between the estimate and the actual cost of the construction. Huge differential. The estimate is just that, an estimate to give everybody a guideline. We're not saying it's going to cost exactly that number. Okay, it's just,
A starting point.
Well,
Okay.
so you're saying we should go to the city with this pre-bid budget that's outlined here?
I would go to the city with this pre-bid budget of $20 million.
Well, but this doesn't have 20 million on it. This has 11,388,700.
It's an older one that you have, I think there's a new handout.
This is the one that we got.
This is the one that we sent you.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't include the driving range. It doesn't include any facilities. It doesn't include.
Wayne,
Yes.
terminal.
I'd have to have a look at that exactly, but if That is the total of it.
What?
The golf course, the 9 holes and the range.
The 11 million?
11 point, I think it's 11.5.
It says 11.388795.
Really, 795, there's no way in the world that they can estimate.
Yeah, so the
But it
left,
says no range, so the range is not.
no, it doesn't say, where does it say in the range?
It says no pump station is not included.
Correct. That's on the other
It
sheet.
says, well, for the irrigation, it says irrigation does not include driving range or pump station.
We have to irrigate
It does.
the
So it
driving range.
doesn't include.
It does.
It does.
Well, you have to understand that as we're finishing our drawings, we're then being able to establish our quantities. And the final quantities are the last piece of the puzzle here.
Okay, but
So-
this doesn't include the tunnel, it doesn't include the maintenance building, it doesn't include the restroom.
Correct. That was
So
just the
how-
golf course. That was
Right,
just the
So
golf
how
course.
are we gonna go to the city though and say, we want 20 million, but this says 11,388,000?
Because the all-encompassing document is there
So,
with all of the
I'm
other.
just afraid all this
yes.
seems very vague and the city is gonna look at it and have way too many questions.
Well, everybody's going to have a question, because it's impossible to take a project like this and estimate it to the nearest $10 or $100, or $10,000 or $100,000. It's virtually impossible until you get a contractor coming out there and saying, I want X dollars to build this. And what we're looking for first is saying, this is what you want to build.
But
We
once we do the
don't
bid
put-
documents, won't we have a more definitive number?
No, in the bid
You just said
documents,
yes.
not in the actual.
The quantities,
proposal.
not the prices.
Right, so, but we'll have a more definitive number once we get the bid documents done.
No.
We
No.
have to approve his option first, adopt his option.
Right, so once when it's approved, you do the big documents and you get a more definitive number.
You'll get,
correct?
you'll get a better estimate,
A better estimate, that's what
but you
I'm
will
saying.
not get the exact dollar amount until the
I'm not-
contractor bids it.
I'm just afraid we're going to the city with a very vague number that it doesn't make sense to go to them.
The number is there, that, what you send, what the detail, what you have is what Craig asked for was just the golf course detail. It has since subsequently been modified.
Bob, did
We
you
have,
something?
Art, you have the actual numbers that you.
the actual numbers for all of the entire facility with the exception of the clubhouse.
And you have the backup, Wayne's provided you the backup.
Wayne has given me a line item of each one.
And
If you want to
Wayne,
copy
you-
this, I can hand this out to everybody to look at.
And Wayne, you have these numbers that have been put together by your team.
Correct.
Okay, so.
With consultants and
Compile that.
contractors.
Now, one of there has been one item here that we should all be very pleased about. And that is through the work of Wayne and Mr. Fazio, we have balanced out the cut and fill for this project. In other words, we do not have to bring onto the site any fill. Whatever fill is on the site available can be moved to what the final design is without the addition of any off-site material, which can be extremely expensive. So the balancing of the cut and fill, in my opinion, in my experience, as an engineer for almost 50 years, is that is the most important item.
It can be the most costly.
Is balancing out the cut and fill.
We have a motion, and it's been seconded to adopt option 4. I'm going to call the question, unless anybody has any other
What,
comments.
is it just the plan or is the financials with it? Is it 10.5 million? What are we?
My motion just was for the plan, Greg. That was
Okay.
not the financial information, which I'm not sure that needs to be part of the motion, does it?
I'm sure the city is going to want to know at some time what our cost estimate is, but I don't think you need to give that to the city in the form of a motion. We can
sure that we have that recap of the expenses and the accessibility to Wayne's team's report so that we can show that those numbers there are legitimately pulled together.
And we will have a joint meeting. Mr. Brown will take this. He will have a, what do they do with it? Thumb drive that I'll give to Mr. Brown, that he will distribute to members of council, which will include this drawing. And we can say to the city, this is what we plan, what our board has adopted as the plan, and we anticipate that we can be ready to play with this plan for September of 2020. Now, if they ask the question, well, how much money do you need to borrow? We still have 5% of the design work to complete. I'm still value engineering the project. It may be something less than the 20 million, it may be 18. It may come up to a little more. But there are some items in here that we may or may not present to the city. But we need restrooms, you need halfway house, you need a new irrigation system, you need new pump stations. All of these things have to be considered if you're going to go to the city and ask them for an additional tranche of funds.
Mark, just one final question. You know, and I've asked this of you before, and you, I presume, have spoken to Merv about our ability to make payments on this loan plus the other loan we have with the city.
Well, Merv and I haven't had an exact conversation about it, but I think we have the ability to do it. And one of the things that is the unknown, is if we can get the golf course itself up and running, that's going to give us an idea of what the revenue can be generated from this facility. And that is a factor that is not considered anywhere in our budgetary process. And we're trying to make this playable, affordable, and produce as many rounds as possible. And there are some other factors out there that I mentioned to the chair earlier about other parties wanting partnership roles to feed us rounds. And so we're just going to have to see how that revenue stream plays out once we get the course open and see the public reception.
Yeah, Art, what do you estimate the cost of the clubhouse to be, and what kind of timeline are we looking at once the course is open in addition?
I'm somewhat prejudiced in this. We had an estimate from an architect for a 12,000 square foot clubhouse. It was $30 million. Somebody said, what? And I said, that was my response too. And I said, there is no way that's going to happen. What I am suggesting, and I hope others will agree with me, that we use an alternative method of construction, a modular method, to build a 12,000 square foot building that I think I can bring in at 600,000. For 12,000 square feet. Full plumbing, full electrical, basement for storage of golf carts. Will look similar in nature to the front of the clubhouse at the old course at Broken Center. And I'm having a designer in Waycross, Georgia, who I do business with. I have no interest in this one, but I just asked him if he could look at it for me. The commercial division is looking at it. I think I've seen something similar in nature. You can't tell the difference between stick-built and modular. And I think we can bring in a modular unit that will withstand 195 mile an hour wind. Will provide you with every amenity that is in a $30 million clubhouse. And I should have that information for you sometime shortly, certainly before phase 2 begins. If that comes in and you like the pictures or you happen to like seeing it, and saying this does the bill, then we've hit a home run with regard to this particular element of this golf course.
Any other comments, questions?
So
Greg?
the stuff that is in phase 3 is also in phase 1, so or what was presented earlier. So there's tree removal, there's vegetation removal. What's the difference?
There's a differential in the landscaping as to when it goes in. You're not going in phase 1 and putting in all your landscaping. You're not putting.
Sorry, Arthur. Some of that was moved into, as I said, that is an older version of the golf course cost that you have.
This one,
The blue and
the blue and gold.
correct. And I've worked, and what we've done is we've taken that, put that into the summary sheet that you just received.
Okay.
And that's it. So work off the summary sheet.
I guess I'm going to be very clear. I'm very uncomfortable with just a big bogey in there, $10.5 million, of a $20 million project without the details. And then the details don't add up to the total.
So we haven't finished, Greg.
Yeah,
We've
but-
only done, we
Oh,
haven't finished that quantity at this point.
You know, but
So-
here, I've never seen a project handled like this. I mean, I'm quite surprised, to be honest with you, because you're saying it's $20 million and it's $10.5 million reserved for the construction of it. And then we get the details of what is the $10.5 million? Well, it's really $11.5 million. Okay, fine, I can accept that. But when I go through and look at all the things that are in here, they're also in the other one too. So I don't know what you're doing. And I certainly cannot go to, you know, a sophisticated city government and say, here's what we want to do. We want to spend $25 million of public money. And then on top of it, realize that, hey, we could be in real trouble here because we don't know what we purchased. And there's history, you know, with our other projects that if we go over, it's just, we raise the prices to the taxpayers tremendously. And I'm not in that program to do that. I like to know exactly what we're going to do, how it's going to be presented, in detailed out, and the numbers have to add up. Otherwise, it's not worthy of going to someone to say that.
That's
Because
fine. My understanding is that you wanted the information.
Craig,
The information that we had at hand, we gave to you. We are still working on this project.
the only way you would achieve what you want to do is to do a design build or do a CM at risk method of procuring rather than a low bid process. And I don't know if you're familiar with either one.
I'm not familiar with either one of them.
And I'm telling you, the way you want to go is to do a low bid on this project. And the only way you can do a low bid is to have this gentleman back here complete the design of this project. Complete the design 100% so that a contractor doesn't have any questions when he looks at it and gets ready to bid it. If he bids it and you don't like it, you don't have to take it. We don't have to take the money from the city. We can cut out 5 holes and make it 6-hole short course. St. Andrews used to be a 6-hole golf course. Maybe we could make it St. Andrews.
All I'm saying is it has to somewhat add up because we've been going at this now since last year. We selected Fazio's team back in the spring. In the spring, we've had all this time to have a nice color drawing. We batted that around, I get that. Now we said, go ahead and build it out. I have higher expectations.
We're not saying go ahead and build it out. We're not asking him to go ahead and build it. We're asking him whether you like this so that we can finish the plans so that we can get the numbers to build it or not build it. Now, if there's something on there that you don't like, if you want to take 9 holes off and make it a 9-hole golf course, we can make it a very reduced price. But it's really a function of the elected body to make the policy decision as to what you want. If you want this, the next step, the next logical step is to tell them to finish their drawings, and then we refine the estimate as much as we can, and then put it on the street for a bid and see whether you like it or not. In swim and racket, we took the 3rd bidder Okay, which is the third bidder. We have had problems before with bidders that we've had to reject. We want to make sure that we get a contractor that is responsible to us financially, and that he can bid the job, and it's going to end up with the job that we want at the price that we want. You're not going to get a guarantee on the price until you put that job on the street and start receiving the bids, just like we recently did with the artificial turf at Patriot Park. You won't know until that happens.
Fair enough, but then the big bogey in the room is the whole thing is 20 to 24 million. Is that
Maybe.
something the district really wants to do?
No, it's not that at all. I just said it could be 15 million.
I think the design is preliminary coming in at
Well,
20.
then you have more knowledge than I do, which I don't think you do, on what the pricing is.
I have
or a
no
general-
idea than this.
Or a general contractor coming in and bidding it. A general contractor could see it totally different than you see it and say, my bid is 17 million, and you think it's gonna cost 24 million. It happens all the time.
Sorry.
Mhm.
So, now, I understand what Craig is saying, but I also understand where we are with the project, is that we're trying to put forward a project that we like, and we apparently like this. Whether we like the price that we get from when we do the bids, that's another project. We have to go to the city. The city, in our negotiations with them previously, said that they wanted to see the design.
Correct.
And input on the design.
Right.
And before they would have a joint meeting, they told us that they want to know what the cost was going to be. All we can do, and listen to the discussion tonight, is that we have an estimate. Our estimates in the past haven't been really spot on because we've had some cost overruns, and that's a concern that Craig's touched on, and I feel the same way. But at some point when we release the RFP, we'll know what the actual costs are when they come back, and then we can decide what we will do and how we're going to do it, or if we're going to do it at all.
That's right, and depending upon how you want to oversee this project, it will be someone's responsibility to bring this project in on time and on budget.
I think that's
Yes, that's you.
duties that we assign to
And
you.
that's great, and I'm telling you as I'm standing here, it will come in on time and on budget.
But we don't know really what the actual budget is.
We won't know that, we won't know that till we look at it.
Once we have the bids, then we can make the decision whether it's a go or no go.
We'll have another meeting just like this and say, we got a good bid, let's go with it, or it's $3 million over. Is there any way you can negotiate $3 million out of the contract with the contractor?
Well, we need to get something on the table.
Exactly.
With the city.
And with Wayne, so he can finish up his work.
Are you saying that we shouldn't go to the city for, in terms of the cost
No.
until after we do the bids?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that this is our projection. This is what our Wayne's team has provided for us. It's what they think the estimate's going to be. When we did the Spanish River project, we had a recommendation from the city that the cost is going to be $24 million. That's right. We came in, all in, I think the low bid was like under 11 million with some things that were left out of the plan, underground stuff. Came in at $14 million. So, I mean, different times today, but
But the same type of scenario.
So once again, we have a motion to adopt the option 4 that has been described by Mr. Kosky and Mr. Branthwaite. It has been seconded. Is there any more discussion? I'm going to call the question. All in favor of adopting option 4, please say aye.
Should we do a roll call?
Roll call be fine.
Roll call. Joanne, do you want to call?
Sure. Commissioner Ernst?
No.
Commissioner Engel?
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright?
No.
Commissioner Valdez?
Yes. Motion
Motion passes.
Let me get to work.
Thank you.
3-2.
Now, I promised the public that they could come up and have public requests for the golf course. If you would come forward, please state your name and your address for the record.
Hello, Greg Galana, 1780 Parkside Circle South. And as always, thank you guys. This is not easy stuff, and I appreciate all of your efforts. As an observer, you know, a lot of us have been here for a long time. This is not an easy thing to do. And none of you guys have ever built a golf course. So I think understanding and learning the process is important. I think following the experts' lead is important. I think getting the city in the boat with us is important. And I think we need to understand the flow of all that. We have to start somewhere. You know, we need a golf course. We've got a lot of golfers that are anxious, and so many of them sitting in the room here. So appreciate your efforts. Let's keep moving this thing forward, and thank you.
Thank you, Greg. It wouldn't be a golf course meeting without Mr. Duquesne.
They should.
Hello, Robert Duquette, 5351 Northwest 3rd Terrace. I'll also have my lovely wife here, who's actually got a lower handicap than I have, Lil Duquette, for the record. A couple of things. It's very good to see a final design on the last meeting. Several of us asked to see an actual design as opposed to the proposals, 1, 2, 3, other things that were still in limbo. One thing on this proposal, looks very nice with the trees. Well, the parking's going to be, I guess, because there's no parking. On the west side of Northwest 2nd Avenue along Flipmore Road, that's where the parking has historically been. It doesn't have to be there, but it's got to be somewhere around the clubhouse, and there's no parking. So I'm sure that's one of the things that the city traffic people might be interested in knowing what that's going to be. Like you've also discussed, it'd be good to know that you're going to have restrooms on at least the front and back at 9, as also some temporary restrooms, I'm sure, at the clubhouse. It's also good to hear Mr. Koski talk about public safety. With that regard, I've talked in the past to some extent about the hole number 7, a design of a dog leg around houses is not generally considered to be very safe for the adjacent property owners. If any of you went to the first hole last week of the Honda Classic, not the Honda Classic, the Oasis tournament, all on the first hole on the right side, there's about 200 yards of trees. Every one of the pros took the ball right over the top of those trees. They're hitting at about 250 yards, maybe 300 in some cases. And the young kids, college kids especially, are going to be hitting at 300 yards. 300 yards brings into play several houses, well, not my house, but several houses in that area there. That number 7 hole could be redesigned as a dog leg right as a par 4. Number 8 could be a par 4, starting in the middle of that dog leg out to somewhere by the tee box on number 9. And that would end up having the normal number of par 3s and par 4s at all, but more importantly, I don't think you want to have people calling you saying that I have a broken window or I got hit by a golf ball, and then you have legal liability. I can tell you that attorneys have been contacted about the legal liability potential, and there is something called design negligence if in fact that becomes an issue. Hopefully it doesn't, but like I said, having any type of hole where you are going around adjacent property, I would think would put you at risk. I noticed hole number 11 was changed, I think, from the prior option 1. That was a par 5 going around to round where number 12 green was. That's very good, again, as opposed to trying to cross over some adjacent property owner's property. A couple other things, too, that follow up on my last comments at the last meeting, the house on the northeast corner. At the last meeting, after I talked, Merv got up and talked. Unfortunately, I think he's left. But Merv pointed out that you spent $200,000 for trailers for your swim and racket club project. This is going to be longer and bigger probably than your swim and racket club project. So I would say, based upon that as an example, you might be looking at $400,000, just as a rough estimate, because you're going to have temporary clubhouse, restrooms, pro shop, and a construction trailers that are all going to be there. It's not going to be just one trailer. It'll be probably multiple trailers. So I stand by my prior suggestion that you consider buying that property. The bad news is, through word of mouth today, I heard that someone might have already signed a contract to buy that property at a higher price. Again, that'll be something for you to determine. That property would help, I think, with the overall control of all four corners, as well as reduce the cost during the construction phase. And lastly, at the last meeting, I know Mr. Koski said that he asked Eddie about the possibility of getting the Oasis tournament at this golf course. And that was one of your objectives. And Wayne had said specifically at a past meeting that this was not going to be a professional type of golf course. And it's not up to me to determine how that's going to work, but that's something that the district needs to give guidance to either Mr. Koski or Wayne on what the plans are going to be.
Timing of that issue last meeting was somewhat wrong. And by the way, do you mind if we put a big red X on your roof?
Oh, that's fine. That's certainly fine. But I think that actually something I have thought about is maybe there could be an LPGA golf tournament here at some point in time.
NCAA tournaments. And there are a couple of things that I failed to mention, Jay. At the driving range, we will have facilities for FAU, Lynn University, Boca High, and Spanish Trail.
And I think that while I don't live in the condos facing the driving range, I think that addition of maybe that's a short shipping area between the driving range and the condos will probably appease some of the people there so they don't have to possibly look in the net or something like that. But I think that design does look better. But the primary thing that I would say that's missing here, like I said, hole number 7, and also need some parking in there. I think that the city's going to be questioning where people are going to park. But thank you for all your time.
Nice to meet you. This is thank you. Really nice to meet you.
Any questions?
Yeah, isn't that a parking lot in front of, where over by the clubhouse is?
Isn't that's where the clubhouse is going to be?
No, that's the parking.
That's a parking lot.
The clubhouse is right above it, see it?
Yeah, between that and the Hollywood.
Trailer. Okay, it's a trailer. Okay, thank you.
Modular home.
It's a modular home. Like manufacturing.
Hello, my name is Jerry Lynn Schultz, 5291 Northwest 3rd Terrace. I'm also a resident of Teaca Woods. And I would like to thank all of you again for all your continuous effort in this project. I've been to most of the meetings, 90% of them, and I know the hours and everything that you have spent on them. I just have a couple questions, and I would like to start with what is going on. I get these questions. I'm on the board at Teaca Woods, and we have 33 homes there, and I get these questions periodically from people, and I'd just like to maybe answer them. So my first question is, what is going on with the maintenance shed right now? And I don't know if you want me to sit down and answer them or...
One at a time, I'd be happy to. Sure. At the, I believe it was the meeting before last, the board gave our office, the general counsel, the direction and authority to pursue essentially ejecting the occupant who's there now. We're in the process of moving forward with that option. One of the issues that we're working to resolve is the parcel of property the shed is located on is owned by the city of Boca Raton. We're currently working with the city attorney's office on a document that will enable them to assign their rights to us so we can pursue a court remedy to essentially get an order of the judge to have the gentleman removed. And In fact, this afternoon, along with the board chair and the executive director, we were out on site, touring the location to get a visual sense of how the property actually looked. And we anticipate having something filed as soon as the city will approve the assignment of the rights to the district.
Okay, thank you. Are the green demo fences that are up now, are those going to be permanent until the construction is done? Or are they coming down and going back up? And
They probably, depending on when we're able to start construction on the clubhouse, will probably remain. As
Okay.
soon as I'd take them down,
Yes,
and then
right.
2 weeks later putting them up.
Right.
If there's an extended period of time, we'll take them down.
Okay, even on that, where the old hotel was, all
Yes.
that's going to stay?
For the time being.
Okay. Mr. Kosky, great idea for the underground tunnel. I've lived here 23 years, and I was here when Arnold Palmer had the golf course, and they were running it, and there were accidents all over the place. I mean, just fender bender thing type things, but they were, they were coming and going. They didn't pay attention to the lights. It will really, in the long run, be an asset. Also, I'm with Rob on the number 7 dogleg. My house is not affected, but there are neighbors that are affected on that dogleg left, that par 5. I don't know if you, have to redesign it or do anything, but it does affect it. I mean, I can see people just cutting over those houses, and living there for this long, there are bad golfers and good golfers.
In Boca Raton?
I was thinking
Good golfers, but I can see them just trying to cut the houses and go. So if Wayne would please rethink that, I would sure appreciate it too. Also, I'd like to know if the formal name is Boca National or Boca Raton National, or if you've even decided what the name is.
Boca National.
Boca National, that is done deal. Okay, thank you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Who's next?
Good evening, Larry Portnoy with Geo Homes, 5500 North Military Trail in Boca Raton. I'm here on a completely different reason. We have been in discussions with the city staff and council members relative to when we are closing on Boca Municipal. There has been, I'll call it a movement, they've not taken a formal position by any means, to keep the continuity of golf in Boca. So the idea was not to close on Boca Municipal until Boca National is open. I was at a workshop with the city yesterday, and there was quite a bit of discussion relative to the 3 sides to every story. Here's mine of the truth. As to the silence that's come from Beach and Parks, that the city has been baffled. Why they haven't heard anything, when are they going to hear something? And it's impossible for them to make a decision on will there be continuity when they don't understand what's going on with Boca National. After hearing what I heard tonight, I think I know what's going to happen. Our closing is being extended for approval purposes from May until October of 2019, and then it was a matter of, is it going to go from 2019 to 2020? In hearing what I heard today and so much uncertainty, the city is all over wanting numbers. They want to know specifics. They'll be glad to hear anything they hear, but I wouldn't set my expectations up very high as to where you're going to go with it. There's a lot of site master planning that has to be done, site plan approvals, interlocal agreements. I've had extensive conversations with George Brown and trying to guess how long certain things might take. But until your design plans are done and you have a much firmer grasp, I don't know how you're going to enter into an interlocal agreement with them. So my only comment basically amongst all that is I wouldn't set my expectations too high, but if it were any objective of this board or not, and I have no idea if it was, to keep continuity of golf going, or if it didn't matter if one course closes, and then there's just no golf in Boca. It was hard to get a warm and fuzzy today listening to where things are. and reality as to how long things are going to take before construction can actually begin. So that's it.
Larry, what is your preference?
Our preference would have been, for very selfish reasons on GL's part, is to see the continuity of golf and keep Oak Municipal open
Till 2020.
till October 2020 or whenever, even if it went a little bit later. We have the flexibility with other land holdings we have, and we'd be more than willing to work with the city, and we offered to significantly increase our deposit to give them a comfort level that we will close even if we delay the closing. So we would love nothing more than to work with you to help convince the city that it's a good thing to keep golf in Boca. But I don't know if that's a position of this board, and I'm a little skeptical in trying to get a warm and fuzzy feeling on timing after I heard the conversations tonight.
We have open discussion. It's like this all the time. You ought to come.
Well, the interesting thing, Mr. Portnoy, is that every meeting that we've had is on our website and videoed. Every single meeting. We've had members of council come to one of our sessions where I thought we selected the option that we were going to move forward to. They couldn't engage in discussion for obvious sunshine reasons since there were three of them in the room. My thought was that our plan was always to keep golf in Boca and have our course open at the simultaneous time when Boca closes. There's some advantages to that from equipment and other things, personnel that would serve to our benefit. As to the warm and fuzzy, we've been there before, so I'm not surprised at all to hear your comments. I'm just disappointed that no one, when we tried to set up a joint meeting with the city, they said, well, wait till you have some firm numbers. As you can hear from our discussion, that's, at this point, it's been difficult, but at least we've got a design. If nothing else, we can get them this information so they know that we're trying to move forward with this project. I'm anxious to get it going. I'd love to have it done before 2020, but permitting and things that you mentioned, I think, are also going to interfere with our projection. I think we were earlier hoping it would be earlier than 2020, but here we are in February, and I thought we would have been further along at this point, but due to the design and the other discussions we've had, getting a consensus on this was extremely important. We've covered that tonight, and hopefully the city will be receptive to whatever we have them, and with an explanation that the final number, we would like to have the final number ourselves, and hopefully as soon as we, as Art said, we can't get that until we have the RFPs responded to.
I understand that. I'm obviously not a representative of the city in any way, shape, or form. But after many discussions and what transpired yesterday, they want to hear something. I just wouldn't set my goals too high. It's probably going to be, thanks, you're on the right course, but come back to us when you have a lot more specifics than if they hear what was presented tonight.
We've heard the same tempo, so and I appreciate your conveying the message. I know that this is.
I am coming from a selfish perspective. I readily admit that.
And we appreciate that too.
But if there's a way to keep golf in Boca that's important to you, it is something GL would desire, and we would work with the city to figure out a closing date that would be amicable to both sides and allow for sufficient time here to get this course built and open. You don't want me to comment on how much you paid Lennar and what that hotel site was worth, and the idea of a $50 million golf course is a little bit hard to swallow.
Go ahead.
Are you suggesting that the city wants someone from Beach and Parks to say, please keep Boca Muni open until is it that simple, or do they need a lot more data or detail?
The city council has never even had a formal discussion. We have heard informally from various people, either staff members, I'll just call it informal conversations. The council has never taken a discussion on it or a vote. I am not here to speak to the city council, but it has come up on numerous occasions, but there's not been any discussion relative. But what was said yesterday by Councilwoman O'Rourke specifically was, and she said she comes to a lot of Beach and Parks meetings, is how can we talk about an extension when we don't have a feel as to when the other golf course will be open?
So now we know.
you have your joint meeting, or Art sends out his email tomorrow, she'll know, but they would love to hear from you, but there's only so long we can hold out before we have to plan what it is we're doing. But we want to stick in this as long as we can, so I really didn't have much, I'm more giving my opinion and thoughts, I'm not really saying anything in terms of a definitive position.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? I've been very remiss. We have a distinguished guest, our former mayor, Mr. Bill T. Smith. Thank you for coming and listening to us.
Very interesting.
Okay, so we have now concluded our golf course report and public requests. We're going to move on to the approval of the accrued annual and sick leave benefits for Madeline Pennsylvania. Jacob, would you like to?
Sure. Very briefly, Madam Chair, Commission. At the last meeting, our office was asked to look into some of the history regarding Ms. Pennsylvania's forthcoming retirement, particularly in the context of some accrued sick leave that she's accumulated during her some 30 years, round numbers, with the district. There was relatively little history and backup material to review. However, we did locate some memorandum at the time, going back to 1993, from the former executive director, Mr. Langford, to the board at the time, which suggested that any unused vacation would accumulate to be paid in full upon her separation of service. There was nothing that was indicated that representation was superseded or otherwise amended. Based on our research and indication, Ms. Pennsylvania would be entitled to that payment, subject to the approval of the board.
Do I hear a motion to approve Maddie's accrued annual and sick leave?
Before we get to the motion, can I just ask council, what was the final dollar amount? I think we spoke about it the last meeting.
I'll defer to Carlos on that.
77,039.95.
Page 6.
Yeah, $77,039.95. Correct. And again, that's accumulated over some 30 years approximately.
Vacation and accrued sick leave.
Correct. All accrued.
Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion.
Okay, second.
I'll second.
You want to do that? I have that, thank you. Any discussion?
Yeah, just one comment. Wasn't that tracking closely with the city's policy dealing with group vacation and sick leave? That's I think is the whole
The answer is yes. There was never any action where this board formally embraced the city's policy, but that representation was consistent with the policies the city had in place.
Thank you.
Any other discussion, questions? All in favor of approving Maddie's accrued annual sick and annual leave and benefits, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Joanne, motion passes. The next item is the interim executive director contract. Mr. Horowitz?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, at your last meeting, this item was presented to the board for consideration. Both this item and the contract with Mr. Koski included a number of blanks and points of inquiry that would require the district's input. Based on the discussion of the last meeting, we made a number of revisions to the interim executive director contract. And a couple highlights I'll just point out to you specifically in section 3.2 regarding the accruals. We provided for a 1 week of compensation for each year of employment and a methodology to reach any anticipated severance for Ms. Arms should there be a separation during her tenure as interim executive director. We adjusted her salary pursuant to the board's direction in section 5.1. There was a credit for her prior service and history with the district of 5 years and 3 months, which is embraced in section 8.3. There were a number of other minor changes that were made consistent with the board's discussion. For instance, we added the provision in 9.0 regarding ethics and conflicts of interest during her tenure as interim executive director. And with the exception of a few other minor revisions, the contract incorporates all the provisions requested by the board.
Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
I think you need Exhibit A, though.
Exhibit A, I believe Ms. Harms had added to the backup subsequently. There was a job description for the executive director position, which looks a lot like this document in the by staff of the district. I think it goes back some number of years, but it sets forth the duties and responsibilities of the executive director.
That job description was created by the human resources consultant that was hired previously. That job description was never approved formally by the board, but that was created most recently.
Thank you for the clarification. I agree with that description.
I think the contract's fine, contingent on the agreement of the exhibit.
The duties and responsibilities are the purview of the board.
Should we approve the contract contingent on follow-up with the exhibit, or should we wait till we have the exhibit?
Well, the exhibit is incorporated into the contract, so it essentially becomes part of the document. So if the contract is approved, and if this is in fact the exhibit that was provided, it now will become part of the final document.
We didn't actually see this till tonight, though. Right?
This was sent out previously with the employee handbook when it was first received from Karen Cox, who had worked with our annual job descriptions.
Bob, did you have a comment?
I'm just thinking of, we have received the Exhibit A. I think we should either approve it subject to or postpone until we all have a chance to review this. I didn't want to, I don't know. What's your?
At your point, Commissioner, you really have two options. You can approve the contract minus the exhibit and subsequently ratify the exhibit once you all have had an opportunity to review it, or you can defer the item and it will come back as drafted with the attached exhibit once you've had a chance to review it and approve all in one shot the following meeting.
What's your pleasure, Commissioners?
Well, what's the material, excuse me, what's the material effect of the exhibit on the contracting?
The exhibit is essentially the duties and responsibilities of the position.
So it should be really.
And it is incorporated into the actual document.
Right. My feeling is that really, we ought to review it and be sure we're all on the same page before we go ahead with the contract. I have no problem with the contents of the contract otherwise. I just want to make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be. I don't want anybody to be uncomfortable with, well, I didn't see Exhibit A, I'm not comfortable, now I'm not comfortable with it, with ratification, haven't seen it.
Well, I'm comfortable with the contract as is, so I vote to approve the contract as is pending.
Yes.
The first, right?
Second the motion.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, but just so we're clear, the exhibit will come back at a subsequent board meeting for the commission to approve, which will then be incorporated as Exhibit A to the document.
Right.
So the contract itself will be approved, subject to future ratification of Exhibit A.
Okay.
That's the motion you
Yes.
here to make. And it's been seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor of accepting the contract and deferring Exhibit A, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Okay. We need to put that on a future agenda item too,
Right.
so we'll discuss that at the end of the meeting.
The contract itself essentially will be known as, assuming that all the benefits will have this.
Okay, item number 4 is the Arthur Kosky contract. Jacob?
And again, Madam Chair, Commissioners, similarly, this item was on the board's last agenda. Given the discussion that occurred in the last meeting, we went through and made a number of revisions. We included a reference to the $60,000 previously approved and written paid to Mr. Kosky in the recitals, although there still is an open question regarding compensation for his position. And there still is, in fact, a blank in space in section 5.1 that will require some input from the board this evening or at some future moment. We did go, as directed by the board, and strike the severance provisions in section 3.0. Mr. Kosky is being retained as an independent contractor. He's not an employee of the district. We added specific language embracing his role as an independent contractor in section 10.0. We also added a provision in section 8.2 regarding the anticipated number of hours that Mr. Kosky anticipates his performance of these duties will take, and it's essentially 20 to 35 hours per week, which the board previously agreed to, Mr. Kosky, I believe, agreed to in section 8.2. Those are the substantive changes, and again, with the exception of a commencement date and a termination date in 2.1, and a
Thought it was 6 million a week.
What's the problem with email, you know? Totally missed it.
I believe the figure was consistent with the one that Art had previously mentioned.
There's one private and one public, two estimates.
Do you have it? Do you have those estimates?
Kim one was sent it.
Right there. Yeah. So it says that.
I'm looking at that, Jacob,
That's small.
on page 20, in the middle of the document, it should be, instead of 1.2, it should be 11.2.
It was,
It
the
was.
salary for, an hourly rate of $30 to $50 an hour results in an annual salary of $62,000 to $104,000 for public sector work.
No, that's full-time, correct?
That would be for a full-time position, that's correct. So
And
it's
his
the hourly
hours?
rate, and he's anticipating between 20 and 35 hours per week.
So is that considered more
It's not,
part-time?
it's not considered full-time. It would essentially be an hourly position based on that, and my understanding is that there's not a tracking process that we've built in. So, you know, Mr. Kosky is not required to provide time sheets, it's just an estimated number of hours that he believes the service is required to do.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, what you were saying? Page 20?
Well, on page 20, you just a typo. Middle of the document, 1.2 should be 11.2.
Ah, thank you.
Rob, I'm gonna send it to your email.
I've got it from Steve here. It's requiring great diligence to read the small print.
There essentially was a private sector and a public sector analysis that we performed. For the private sector, the cost analysis for 40 hours a week resulted in an annual salary between $104,000 and $156,000. In the public sector, at a full-time position, it was $30 to $50 per week, which resulted in between $62,000 and $104,000 again for a full-time position.
What was the first one?
The private sector was $50 to $75 per hour at 40 hours a week, resulting in a $104,000 to $156,000 position. In the public sector, between $30 per hour and $50 per hour, plus benefits, depending on the experience, longevity, and position. The annual salary would be between $62,000 and $104,000.
Full-time.
Sorry, for 40 hours per week. Correct.
It seems to me, you know, we have a gentleman with that's a public engineer, professional engineer designation, that's doing this project. So I don't know what the job description was and what the experience was for someone in the public sector. But it just seems to me, you know, $30 an hour seems unreasonably inadequate for the services that Mr. Kosky would be providing. And even $50 rate per hour seems like an insult to this man. When I was in an attorney's office today, and he was talking about charging $500 an hour for this, which was just sounds outrageous.
What kind of work was he doing?
He was in construction litigation.
Wrong line of work.
So, you know, I'm looking for some suggestions here from commissioners. I don't know what's fair and reasonable number or not. And based on those, on the high end, it's like, was it $75 was on the high end? Is that what I read?
In the private sector, private.
Now, and that number is exclusive of benefits.
That is correct.
Okay. So considering we wouldn't be paying Mr. Kosky any benefits, that needs to be factored in.
Correct.
So, and also in consideration of Mr. Kosky's experience in the field, both as an engineer and as executive director. So
He knows how to deal with us, he knows how to deal with the professional issues that he would come across in this capacity. So I would think we would be looking at a minimum of $100 an hour.
But that's not even in the range of.
That's true, but the ranges are exclusive of any benefits. So you have to factor that.
Excuse me, the public sector analysis was based on a housing authority construction manager for residential construction projects. And I would only offer that the golf course construction is a fairly unique service in that regard, somewhat different from the models that we were able to look at.
So would that, $100 an hour, that would compute to approximately $12,000 a month, correct?
If we're looking at, let's do the math.
If he was doing 30 hours.
At 30 hours, or 30 hours a week, $100 an hour would be $12,000 a month, correct?
So come out to $144,000 a year.
I think it's too much, and I think you're running a great risk with everything that we've taken on. And I've asked Mr. Housen, this is your swan song. What is it that you would like to be paid? Rather than us get a big number for all this stuff.
And it is difficult for me to say to you what a manager on a project like this would be. I have seen us work for 10 to 15% of the job done. Certainly don't want to do that. But you're not going to find any professional engineers going out to go work for 30 hours a week for $100 an hour. Simple as that. And if you offered me that job for $100 an hour, I would reject it. Simple as that. I don't know what is a fair number to say, but I would think that we should be looking at it on a monthly basis, because it is written for 24/7 availability. It is Wayne's contract wanted somebody on the job every day to answer questions, which I don't mind. I feel awkward. I would tell you that if he asked me to do it for nothing, I'd probably do it. If he asked me to do it for $100 an hour, I'd say no. You know, I mean, that's how my feelings enter into it. And I don't, I would think that you really are looking at, for somebody, I am a professional engineer, have been since 1971. I have a special qualification to my PE license. I am a licensed surveyor, I am a licensed mapper, and I am an attorney. And I hold those licenses in numerous states. I'm not saying it's worth $500 an hour, but it's worth over, it's worth $250 an hour, somewhere in that range.
How many hours do you think it require a week? I mean, there's really no way to know.
Well, like Wayne says, he wants somebody out there every day to answer questions, so I plan on being on the job on a daily basis, Saturday, Sunday, meetings, travel to whoever's office, and that's with regard to the design. Not even counting what happens when we get into the balance with the contractor, to place the responsibility of keeping the job on budget and on time. It's a big responsibility. I'll be using my
hours. $250 an hour. $7,500 a week. 7,500 times 52 is 390.
I feel very conflicted, but I want to do the right thing by it. But I've got expenses too. I get no benefits.
Well, can I make a suggestion? I mean, it may not be what you like, but the reality is, if you're gonna do $250 an hour or $350 an hour, I think it behooves us, for the taxpayers, that we publicly advertise it and look forward, if that's what you do. But I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think the right thing to do is you bring to the table a lot of experience. Certainly your knowledge and experience of how to get things done within the district and all that has been phenomenal. And for that, I think many people are very thankful to do that.
Well, I don't want to be rewarded for that. I just want to be compensated for the time. That's all.
Right, but we're hiring not an attorney, we're not hiring anything, we're hiring a construction manager. And so if we're hiring a construction manager in the spirit of what Jacob has outlined, what about the...
You can get somebody for $150 an hour, and you're going to come get them.
It may or may not, but why don't we just stick with the same thing that we already have, which I thought was like $10,000 a month. That what you've been paid $60,000 for the first half of this year.
That was for the
Executive director, correct. And I'm just saying, continue on that same path of $10,000 a month. And is that acceptable?
If that's what you want.
It's up to the board. I don't know.
I don't have a problem with that. But I like one money short. It's going to make a difference in my lifestyle. So, you know, if you want to pay me $10,000 a month,
If Mr. Koski's happy with $10,000 a month, then I'm happy with $10,000.
I could be happier.
wasn't happy with
I could be happier, Steve.
Yeah, well, we can all be happier. I'd be happy if we got paid $10,000 a meeting, but that ain't gonna happen, you know. My point is, if you're satisfied with that, then I'm satisfied.
Let me say this, I'm willing to do it. Okay.
That's not there. Then I'm fine with it. So moved. I make a motion that we compensate Mr. Koski $10,000 a month for his role as construction manager, beginning July 1st, but this is
Well, you
retroactive to
get
January.
the credit for what.
But the credit, it just continues.
Yeah, I've really been on the job for 2 months or
And
4 months.
the other addition to it is historically you've been paid on a 6-month basis.
No, every month.
We could pay you on a 6-month basis if that continues the way it was.
I did die before that, so we pay me on a monthly basis.
Okay.
It's easy for you, there's no questions.
Okay. So I make a motion.
Well, Steve made the motion.
Oh, Steve did?
Yeah.
Okay, second.
And any other discussion?
I think we're getting a good deal, Art's getting a bad deal. Really, I feel like that we're underpaying him for the talents. I know we're not paying him to do legal work, we're not paying him to be drawing on that experience as a professional engineer. And I know there's a lot of work that goes into maintaining that designation. And if this develops into more than 30 hours a week, and I hope Mr. Costi will keep track of his time, I think we should go back and revisit that, because that's an outrageously low number compared to what I've seen with construction managers. I get it.
I agree. Isn't there a percentage in?
It's awful high.
I understand.
I mean, I can never ask the taxpayers to pay let's try it, let's see what happens. I want to see this till I'm through. This is my last job. I'm retiring from the district, and this job is over.
But we're doing it in phases, so that's going to be years down the road. Okay, is there any more discussion, commissioners? Let the record reflect that Commissioner Wright had to. Okay, all in favor of compensating Mr. Goski $10,000 a month? Please say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign.
If I make for clarification, because we will revise section 5.1 of the agreement to reflect what the board has discussed and approved. This will take effect July 1st, is that correct? It will have heard based on the prior payment credited for the 60,000. I just want to make sure I understand correctly that you've been paid for the first 6 months of the year. So this effective
Yeah.
will be, the first payment will essentially be July 1st.
Monthly pay.
Monthly payment, correct, monthly payment. Thank you.
Okay, we have the employment manual, commissioners.
Did we take a vote?
Yeah, we did.
Yes,
So-
I was just
You voted yes.
We approved the pay. Did we approve the contract as well?
I took the motion to be the approval of the contract
Yeah.
with the inclusion of
Okay.
10,000.
That's the confusion.
Would you like to address item number 5, the employment manual, or would you like to refer that to another time?
I think it's good to have Aaron's input. I gave my feedback to Brianne. I thought it was very well written. I was very impressed with the overall thing, minor little things, suggestions for improvement. I don't know if you want to
Why
address it.
don't we do a future agenda item since Erin isn't here? She
Yeah.
has some suggestions. Yes, Bob?
Let me just add, since I haven't had the opportunity to talk to Jacob about this, I agree with Craig that the contract, the employment agreement is nice, but there are two things in there that I want to address for the next discussion. We don't have a human resources director, and that was mentioned repeatedly throughout the contract. So I think unless we plan to hire a human resources person, I don't think that we should have that in there. It should be the responsibility of the executive director. And secondly, I don't think that anybody but the commissioners should have any ability to change the employee manual. And in there it was mentioned that the executive director had the authority to change the terms of employment. And I think that responsibility should be the responsibility of the commissioners as to its responsibility to abrogate to our executive director.
Would it be possible for everyone to submit their suggestions to Brianne about the changes so that we can start working on those before we actually have
Just
the
gave you
discussion?
I have yours, and I have Commissioner Ernst. We need to look at this in March.
I agree.
Yes. March 4th?
I won't be here March 4th.
The second meeting in March.
Second meeting in March. Okay.
Craig, would you do the approval of invoices and payroll, please?
I will. Madam Chair, I make a motion for approval of invoices and payroll in the total amount of $600,844.20.
Second.
Discussion? Any questions? All in favor of accepting the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Joanne? Okay, we're up to reports and discussions. Brianne?
Commissioners, I have just a few things to cover. I know everybody's anxious now to head out of here. Our first, the RFP for the needs assessment went out. It was posted on January 25th. It's due back by February 21st. We're going to have our first meeting on February 27th to start discussing and selecting somebody to run that needs assessment for the city for rec services. So that's moving along. We have another meeting this week on user fees, and I hope by the second meeting in March, we can discuss swim and tennis center fees and work to move forward on changing some of those to get more aligned. so that all the centers kind of relate to one another. We're going to continue our discussions about pavilions, facility rentals, and athletic fees moving forward. I've been working with with Carter, who works here at Sugar Stand Park, as well as our Achieve agency on the website updates, and they're moving really quickly towards getting all of our websites up to date and current and ADA compliant. So we hope to have those rolled out probably in the next month. At least 3 sites will be ready to go, and then we'll get the next 3 out. And then we have the golf course site to discuss.
Brianne, on the user fees, will you be in a position by the spring at least to have a recommendation for a full year of user fees that are consistent with the?
Yes.
That's the objective. So next year's budget will have the new user fees.
Don't give up the ship.
Yes, absolutely.
Please.
We got back the Don Estridge interlocal agreement from the school district, and I put copies in everybody's folder so that we can discuss it at a meeting moving forward. I know Jacob has reviewed it, or is reviewing it. They did not budge too much on the time frame, other than giving us an additional 15 minutes of setup time. So not much has changed as far as what we requested, but this is where they're at with it. So if we could have everybody can review it, we can look at it in March.
First or second meeting? Second meeting?
Second meeting.
Okay, second meeting.
And finally, takes a deep breath. The Gumbo Limbo Boardwalk and Tower project is progressing. However, we did get some news from the city this week that the tower is now going to be required to be ADA compliant beyond just the first level. What that means, we're still trying to work that out, and Jacob has his crew working on it as well to figure out if there's alternatives. I've spoken with Mike Dyko, who's running the project. We've spoken to Mike Wika, as well as staff at Gumbo Limbo. We all want to make something work that is financially viable, as well as making it compliant. So we hope by the next meeting, even by next week, we have something to come back to you with. Right now, the tower is they stopped work on the tower presently until we know what we could do with it.
Let me back into where we are from the beginning on this tower project. Is it when the tower was examined, it was determined we had to take it down because of the infrastructure was rotten?
During phase 1.
Right, during phase 1. Everybody wants to put the tower back in its present configuration. It's a vital part of the Gumbo Limbo project. At the time that we agreed to do that, we were under the impression that it was not an ADA requirement that we provide that access. Now, after the city took over the project from us, we were no longer involved in the project, and our obligation is the construction cost, which now are going to obviously be considerably more than what they were without it being ADA. Now, I'm not saying it should not be ADA if that's a requirement, but we should have known that at the very beginning of the project. And the city was remiss in not telling us that before they started building this project.
There are some, I've expressed some concerns with city staff about the communication from permitting through where it got to this point. But we have to find a solution at this point as well.
I agree, Brianne, but you know, the frustrating thing to me is you hear reports that we don't communicate. And we've had 2 examples now, the tennis and Patrice Tennis Center, now this, which I consider to be a major foodblock.
We asked them, Bob, remember? We flat out asked them if they had to be ADA compliant, and they said no.
Right, so it makes me very frustrating, and it's like, I'm happy to put the tower back without the ADA cost, and then have the city pay for the ADA cost, and that's how strong I feel about it. If it's got to be ADA, and it's got to go up, then the city should be responsible, because they're the ones that do the drawings, they're the ones that are overseeing the construction. There is no reason for us to be responsible for a failure on their part, communicate with us about what the cost is going to be.
Correct. I think once we know what we can do with it, I know Mike Wika expressed in it that we all want to work together on it to make something work out.
I hope so.
And I know, I also spoke with Michelle Field, and they want to work together as well, so.
Well, I mean, there's other pots of money that can be drawn into this as well. And I refer to the Friends of Gumbo Limbo. I mean, this is part of their project. And I mean, to put in an elevator, I can't even begin to imagine what the cost might be to put an elevator in there to gain access or some type of a lift.
We have Jacob looking into some other alternatives as well.
just, we are, as Brian indicated, looking at that, and the ADA provides some consideration, particularly in the context of financial burden and the efforts it would take to bring an otherwise non-compliant structure into compliance. There's a reasonable accommodation process, which the ADA does allow, and there may be some reasonable accommodation options that will fall short of actually providing a lift or an elevator, but still provide an accommodation to essentially be able to take advantage of whatever sites or other benefits you might receive from accessing the top of the tower. So we're looking at a couple of different options with staff, which are in conjunction with that process.
I think there was either one of our commissioners, who's no longer on the commission, suggested some type of a visual, like a periscope or something that might.
Or the live camera feed. There are a couple different options that may satisfy the reasonable accommodation requirement that we're looking at.
It's still to me late in the game for us to be discovering it's not fun.
Question, is there any contractual obligation to us for that? I mean,
all of our interlocal agreements require us to indemnify the city.
but for this kind of faux pas, the point, we chipped in $1 million, we thought it was going to be $1 million, now it's going to be another X. I'm just saying, to Bob's point, is if we say, look, we're done, you guys started it, you did this, we're done, is there any contractual requirement for us to pay them that?
Yes, we are required to pay all the costs of operation and maintenance of Brick Ridge Park, which Commonwealth is a park.
The unfortunate thing is that we've gotten so far along in the tower build at this point, once it's done, it would just have to remain closed until it was compliant.
And that's one of the problems with the master interlocal agreement. It continues to contain provisions where we are to indemnify the city for the city's own negligence.
Well, I get that part, and they want everything, but I'm concerned about this project. Brianne, you mentioned it was, I don't know, how much is this elevator?
Well, they ballparked 5 or 6, but we've looked at other cities who run into $1.2 million fixes on there. So I can't go by the city's ballpark number. They don't have an actual figure.
But we know it's more than 100,000.
Absolutely.
So,
It's a large
I'm just saying, this is material budget stuff for the district, and we really, we could pay them that. Last time I checked, it was 1.7 million not allocated to anything, so now you're down to 1.1 million, and you got an asterisk with it. So I think that part of this thing has to be really discussed, and that's why I hesitate a lot on the golf course, just because you're getting deeper into something that, we don't know enough about. So I'm very, very concerned about the financial budget on this whole.
Well, Brianne brought some very good points up about maintenance, with it being so close to the ocean, and if elevator goes into disrepair, do we have to close the entire tower because it's not ADA compliant, blah, 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 blah. So there are a lot of other things, and she's really looked into this and thought it out very carefully.
I think our best option would be to find another alternative that will make it compliant.
Like I said, we started working this a couple days ago. We're working through the process, understanding the costs and implications associated with this, so we hopefully will have an answer in the next few days.
Bob, to answer you, I have expressed our concern with the communication to the city and staff.
Did they communicate that?
Actually, I haven't gotten a response back to that question.
Melissa, do you have a facilities manager update, please?
Yeah, I'll just go quickly with Gumbo Limbo. All work on the tower was suspended as of Friday, but the pilings for the new portion of the boardwalk and the substructure and framing is all going in and moving along nicely. Gumbo Limbo is still in permitting process for the pumps. Red Reef Central, we had our construction meeting. A majority of the demolition is completed, so we're moving forward with that. On the central restroom, the north restroom, hoping to get the permits finalized this week. We had our first construction meeting for the Patch Park. We got the permits submitted, and submittals are coming in on that, so we're moving forward. Have our second meeting tomorrow. The tennis courts, you've all been, you've been sent a copy of that report, and on the 19th, we've got a lot, we're going to have a lot of facilities before you on the 19th. And so if you'll review that, that'll give you some information back on the tennis courts and what our third-party analysis of those courts and investigation into the infrastructure and the condition of the pavement, what pavement was. Swim and Racket Center signage package was installed. Push activators for the doors were installed. Called the and the work orders put into City Electrical to get the electricity hooked up to them. And hopefully that'll be done this week. Called them again yesterday and asked them about getting that done because the doors are a little heavy right now. And then on one of the items for next Tuesday will also be a solution to these floors in the Swim and Racket Center. And then the Sugar Sands Park Science Playground, the warranty work was completed. It's holding up very well. The inserts are doing fantastic. So next week, we'll be sending you out your packet information tomorrow, and there'll be a lot of facility information in there for you guys to review so that we can have some decisions on that Tuesday, because we do need to do some more to maintain the warranty at the playground for that surface. We'll need to do a roll coat as well, so that information will all be in that packet.
Thank you very much. Do you anticipate, what's the date you anticipate our CO for the Swim and Racket Club?
That's Mike's project, that one.
CO date, April 28th. I don't know if that's, I don't know what day of the week it is, but it's the last week of April.
Okay, thank you. So, that's your,
yep, that's
thank you very much. Jacob?
The only item I wanted to mention was the one I mentioned earlier regarding the warehouse on the golf course parcel. I essentially gave my update earlier, but we're waiting to hear back from the city attorney's office regarding a proposed assignment of the city's rights. The city attorney is still determining whether or not the city council will be required to approve that. If yes, the answer is we'll go before the city commission to ask for their consideration on that particular item. If not, the county attorney will approve it, the city attorney will approve it, and once we have their rights assigned to us, we'll go ahead and file a lawsuit to seek to remove Mr. Petrikowski. So we're moving forward there, as I said earlier, with the opportunity to review the site this afternoon with the chair and with Brianne and with Melissa, which is very helpful. So we're having some good progress there, and hopefully soon we'll be able to file that lawsuit to get that matter moving forward. That's the only item I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, Mr. Ernst?
No, thank you. I'm good.
Huh?
Just a couple of comments. This needs assessment. Keep us up to date on that, Brianne. I know it's been quite some time since there was a needs assessment that's been done by the community, and before this thing gets etched in stone, I want us to have an opportunity to have some say-so over what changes, if any, might be necessary. And then the other, I was thinking about that comment about Patch Reef and the release of Mr. Rodriguez, who was set up a tennis academy at Patch Reef. I would hope in the future, they heard my comments about, I think Leslie was here at the time we talked about that, and she provided us some backup information. I would hope that in the future they consult with us on if there's a major programming change like there was at Patch Reef. I hope they consult with us, and I hope that the message gets passed on to them. If you have an opportunity to say so, or even pass along in writing to Mr. Calvert, I was concerned about how that was going to play with the community and the people who wanted to play over there at Patch Reef, just pick up games, what kind of impact it was going to be. And I heard their explanation, but before they engage in something else again, I hope they'll talk to us and bring us more information about the revenue generated, and if it is in special interest revenue. But I'd like to know, what's our expense involved in these operations in the future. I know we don't operate at profit on the special interest, but if something's costing us more money than the value that we're getting, we want to sort that out. And when we get in the budget, I'm going to be asking some questions about, what special interest activities we have, because I don't know that we know the scope of those activities and the revenue that goes into them. And we do have activities that take place at Patch Reef, or Patch Reef, like the wheelchair tennis tournament, which I think is important to the national scene. But been satisfied that that's, it's been billed as a revenue generator, but when they consider the direct cost of employees that participate in it, it's operating at a loss. I'm not saying we should discontinue that, I'm just, that's an example of things that I want to investigate when we get into our budget periods. And to Craig's concern as a treasurer, I want to make sure that we're maximizing what we're doing in those events that are costing us money that there's low participation, and I want to make sure that we sort those things out.
Thank you, Bob.
I'm sorry, there's one item I forgot, and that's related to MERV. If we were moving money to the Florida Prime Fund or not to increase our interest earnings, do you need a approval to do that?
I think we will need approval to move it to move additional funds to the SBA.
Right.
To the, whatever they call it now.
Okay, and Bob's comment kind of triggered that to me because
You'll need to authorize the transfer.
If that's objective, I would ask for a motion to move money, yes.
Yeah, so we have a meeting next week, we'll prepare for that accordingly.
I'd like to have more information.
Yeah, we'll give you more information, but it's fairly significant in this tight time budget because we are going to increase our interest earnings significantly from Northern Trust going to the SBA. I think it's from 1.75, which has been very good recently, and it'll go over to 2.25. So that's important, sure is.
That's for February 19th. Will you be prepared for that on February 19th?
Excuse me?
Will you be prepared to report on that on February 19th?
Yes, we were prepared, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, I don't have anything, other than I did, go to the Oasis tournament. It was well attended. We got some very good response to the area that Mr. Branthwaite set up to showcase the golf course. And people are very excited, and they want to see this golf course constructed. So other than that, we have our future agenda items, and we will be meeting again next Tuesday, the 19th, February 19th. So do I have?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?